Was looking for my mushroom spawn and you guys are leaning up against it. We got to trade you out. Melanie here. Today I am spending time outdoors mushroom logging. You guys have seen us do this before in the past. We had a bunch of mushroom logs that were drilled, but I never got around to putting the spawn in, so I need to finish those today, or as much as possible. There's a lot of them, guys. A lot. I need backup. Wanted to share some things going on with you guys and just a little bit about what's happening in the area, what I think is coming, how do we prepare for 2025, all the things. Drop in the comments anything you think is coming. I'd love to hear your opinions. So one update, and if you guys have questions on what I'm doing, I have a whole YouTube coming out on this after the first of the year, but this is mushroom logging. I am growing a mushroom farm. These are shiitakes, and I'm taking the spawn and I'm putting it in my plunger, and we pre-drilled holes into this fresh cut tree, and I'm putting them in the holes, and then I'm going to seal them up with wax, and this turns into food. I actually have some producing right now because the weather is perfect for these, but it's about to get super icy and super cold, so we're trying to get John into his home this week. Ian's working really hard to finish some things so we can get his shed home delivered hopefully tomorrow and make sure he's warm. I did find him a sofa. It's such a great sofa, and I'm gonna go out tomorrow and get some more furniture, especially his bed, so that we can get that in there. I got word, I need to move you guys up higher because I'm gonna break my neck bending down like that. Okay. I got word that some of our sheds almost flooded. Wayne was out. Blue has a new spot for her tiny home, possibly, and he went out to look at the site today and said he saw some of our shed homes, and we got a ton of rain and it came within a foot of going into those sheds. And the reason is because the land has changed so dramatically since the hurricane that what used to be deep riverbeds are now kind of washed out wide riverbeds, and so things are just not the same. And so they were digging that out, trying to make it deeper over there this morning, so that the tiny homes, there's a bunch of them over there on people's property that's left, that they don't actually flood what they're trying to rebuild over there, which is crazy. Depression 2025. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't see how you can look at our financial situation and think there's ever going to be anything good out of it. I mean, we just can't survive financially as a country with our debt the way it is. So I agree, it could be recession, depression. I think the ultimate goal is moving into a digital currency. And so how does that happen? Is it going to be a soft transition? I think it'll probably be soft, just because this country is full of a bunch of people with a lot of bang bangs and a lot of independent minded people. Tends to make it where they want the transition to be a soft one. So maybe a crisis followed by a reset of the dollar that helps people and makes it look like it's helping people. You know, problem, reaction, solution. No, I'm not Amish. I wish our communities lived like the Amish, though. So that would be amazing. But I am doing logs. Do I look Amish? Oh, maybe it's the hat. Yeah, no, not Amish. Appalachian. Western North Carolina. I'm originally a Florida girl, but I never fit there. Moved to Appalachia. Totally fit here. This is my place. So what I'm doing is inoculating logs to make sure we have food security. So I'm changing the channel name. If you guys are a member, or if you follow my regular content, it used to be the Aeroponic Tower channel because I grew with aeroponics, but I share so much more, and I grow with permaculture. I grow mushroom farming. I grow all kinds of ways. And so I'm changing it to alternative homesteading. So I thought I wanted to be a homesteader, and I tried that for a while. I don't like it. I feel like homesteading actually makes you really dependent on systems, because you have to have a way to feed animals and give them medicines and minerals, and you've got to have freezers galore, and you've got to do a ton of canning and all of those things. I want to go back to before the homesteading movement, which was, how did people live way back when, right? They grew fresh food all the time. European kitchen gardens. It was called cottage living. People had a home and they surrounded it with food, and they grew food year round, and they stocked up. When they had dried beans and grains, they made sure to get bulk of those things, and then they used their fresh food to add to those, and they wild foraged. I don't know if they grew mushrooms back then, but they definitely wild foraged them, and they had food security. So that's more what we do here. So it's alternative homesteading. Homesteading you can do in any space. All right, because even if you're in an apartment, you can have a couple mushroom logs and just keep them on your back porch by your front door. And I'll show you. I don't know if I can show you guys. I don't know if the Wi-Fi will work that far, but you can. Mine are spawning right now. So in the next 2 days, I have our protein source for the week covered, because my mushroom logs are blooming. All right, I'm going to wax them now, and I'll try and read your comments. Yes, we love food. I don't want digital currency either. Digital currency is complete control. They just launched it in, I think it was Thailand, as a pilot. And here's what they do. So in the area, it may not have been Thailand, but I think it was Thailand. What they did was they went to the lowest income section of the country and gave them this money through a digital currency, and gave them 6 months to use it. And if they didn't, it just disappeared. But here's the catch. In order to use it, they had to be registered. So there is a big population of people over there who aren't a part of the scam that is our Social Security, and they weren't registered. So in order to get on that, you had to first register. And so now they are in the system. So it is a control, complete control. They will control your carbon consumption using carbon credit taxes. And you know, some of you guys who think the Musk is your friend, he was recorded saying that he believes in that. Also, if you think about it, like, look at the sky above me. His satellites cover our entire sky system. They grid everything. If you go look up the satellite grid systems, Bill Gates owns like 65,000. There's millions going up. And like, that's, to give someone that much control over our sky systems, that's crazy. And it's happened. It's already happened. So be careful with him, because he likes to say what we like to hear. It's called the tickling of the ears. But he's also a part of, he's the tool to get us into the 4th Industrial Revolution. Like, he is the gateway. Without him, there is none. So there's that. Yeah, the aeroponic tower channel, people can't spell it, and I don't just do aeroponics anymore. I'm going to be interviewing other people as well, once a month on my channel, maybe twice, that grow food and live differently. That's why I love the alternative. There's one called Alternative Homes, and I love watching that channel and seeing how people live differently. That's the goal. Let's get out of this system and live alternative lifestyles that free us from what's coming, what's already here. It's already here. I cannot get this to melt. And hold on. That's where we can have freedom, or at least time. I don't know if we can't stop it, but we can definitely have time. And the more we're out of those systems, the better, in my opinion, because it gives you a buffer. I just recorded a video and I was sharing on there. My friend is a dispatch for 911. And he said here in Western North Carolina, when the hurricane hit, people were calling 911 by day 3 saying they were starving. And he was having to tell them, I'm sorry, I can't help you. It's not life or death. You won't die of starvation. That's what was going on here. Like, and some people can't afford to prepare for any kind of emergency. But we've become so dependent. Like the poor people in the past, those financially not secure, grew their own food still. If anything, that's how they stayed alive, because they grew their own food. We don't have that anymore. You know, they plop up these Dollar General, what do you call them, market stores. We went through some towns in West Virginia last week, and all over in Alabama, like the poorest areas, that's what they put in for the grocery stores with, you know, food that's not healthy, makes the situation worse. And we've just really given up our independence. A trauma nurse for 25 years. Like Gerald Carlson said. What did he say? I don't know who that is. Oh, so the new channel, I'm going to call it Alternative Homesteading. So it's about learning how to homestead in any space. And homesteading just means growing our own food, using our own natural medicines, independence from the systems. But I'm not a traditional homesteader, and I do not want to be a farmer, unless it's a mushroom farmer. I'll be one of those. So a lot of my customers too are in apartments. And how do you gain independence with your food systems if you don't have a lot of land? And I mean, some of these gardens I see going in on the homestead channels I watch, first off, I don't know why they need that much space, because I never see them eating fresh vegetables. But I think it's all for, like, that movement is a lot about growing a bazillion tomatoes to can, and maybe green beans and a few other things, and that's it. Where I believe more in daily access to fresh, healthy foods and a huge variety of foods. So we grow, I'll take you guys in and show you a tour, a ton of greens and root vegetables and mushrooms year round. So we have access to food, herbs all the time. So I can always make a healthy meal for the family, just even in the dead of the winter. It's about to be super, super cold in a lot of parts of the country this week, but we will be able to go into the garage and harvest food, even when it's super icy out, which is the goal. So if you just got on, I'm inoculating mushrooms. We did these logs, and I have a whole course coming out on this on my channel. We took the trees down and we drilled the holes a couple of weeks ago. It's been over a month actually. And you really don't want to go more than a few weeks after you cut the trees down, because you don't want them to inoculate with wild mushrooms. So I need to get this done. I have like 20 though, and this is a big project. I need help. I need backup. Anybody close? Come mushroom log with me, please. But we're going to get this done. This is food security. It's how we farm mushrooms. It's also just nice to be outside, fresh air. Barbara ONeal is coming to Western North Carolina. If you want details, make sure to follow my Instagram or get on my newsletter. I will be a part of that event. I'll have a booth for one. I'm getting Harvest Wall and Tower Garden to participate in that. I'm trying to get Pure Juicer to be a sponsor as well, so we can have some fresh juice right on the spot from the towers. But Barbara ONeal is coming, and we are going to dive into all the ways to take back control of our health in 2025. And it starts with food. How do we get the freshest food possible? And she does an amazing job at practicality. I like educators and channels that show you how and give you information on how to do things, because we need to be learning skills. It is the most valuable asset we can have in times of crisis. If we think the world is changing, it's changing. AI is about to blow up. The AI we've been used to, it's going to look so different, kind of scary. Moving forward, it's going to take a lot of jobs. Sad part is it takes jobs of those in my age point too, like 40 and above, because people in that age bracket have been around for a while and have high incomes, and you can replace those people with newer young adults who know how to work AI and how to run those programs at a quarter of the cost. So we have to prepare for that as well. All right, now I'm putting the wax on. So here, you just take hot wax, and we're covering our spawn so it seals. That prevents it from falling out and from other mushroom spawn getting in here. And ensures we get good healthy mushrooms. These are shiitake mushrooms. Shiitake is a medicinal and an edible. There's a couple in that family. Lion's mane is another one, where they're a food that you can put on the table daily, but they also have super potent medicinal properties, mostly for neurological support, which is really important because that is one of the main systems that were targeted with that vid that was going around. It was a neurological toxin that's why you lost smell and taste, but lost it, like it's easy to lose smell and taste with a cold. That's not the same. People lost smell and taste because it attacked their neurological system and cut off those communication pathways. Totally different. That's why people also had tremors with that particular. It was especially bad with one strand that came out after the thing was distributed. Okay, we got one more here. All right, this log is done. There's food. Another one to go. Let's go grab another one. Hold on. Now look at the comments. Yeah, thanks for the thumbs up. Okay, I lost you for a second. I had to pick up heavy logs. But yeah, in person, she teaches great information. And it just gets us connected to like-minded people. There'll be other speakers there. Community. That's where it's at, guys. Also, know your content creators, because AI is also taking over the content creation world. There will be influencers that are going to be fake soon. There already are some, but they're going to get really good at being fake. Oh, sorry. I think the Wi-Fi's back on now. The world has changed. Sorry, I'm reading some of your comments. Yeah, I wish you guys could come and help. Please come and help. Take a log with you. I usually have, and we did a big group, or not a big group. I had a couple people come do this, and we were doing them together, but then we ran out of time, and they left, and here I am, finishing off the project. It's all right, though. It's nice out. Fresh air. Barbara's book talks about the importance of fresh oxygen. We have been programmed to sit in our homes way too much, friends, like way too much. So I love that growing food doesn't have to be super intensely hard. I need you guys to be like this. And we don't have to be farmers out killing ourselves at 5 in the morning. But I do think if we can grow some of our own food using aeroponics, hydroponics, raised beds, just at some level, it gets, what in the world? Hold on. Okay, it gets us outside, fresh air, into the cells. Super important. We're opening the windows, grounding. How do you ground in the winter? I was talking to somebody about this the other day. You hug a tree. Like that whole tree hugger thing, it was kind of mocked and made fun of, but it's actually a grounding tool. Go sit by a tree, lean your back against it to read a book. It's how you can ground in the winter. You can sit on something warm. Just want your body touching the tree. And yes, I can be super hippy dippy. But that's good. I think it's good anyway. you know, because it keeps us. I was sharing on my last video I did on water filtration, and I commented that you like take your own water filtration when you go to families, and somebody commented like their family would die if they showed up with something like that. And I was saying, like, you just got to be super weird and against the things, and then people just accept that, and they don't mess with me. Like, nobody would be shocked if I showed up with my own water and my own food when I go to their house. They're just like, there's Stephanie doing her weird thing again. And that's okay, because I do bring all my own food. Or I just don't eat when I go places. And it's so funny, because I met Ian, who works full-time for us, doing the sheds. Like, you can offer him food and he won't eat it. And I was chatting with him, and he was raised by a super hippie mom, and they grow their own food. And he doesn't eat other people's food. And I was like, I didn't know why at first. Like, if it was just he didn't feel comfortable. And then I learned that. I was like, oh, I totally get that, because I don't eat anybody's food either. The only person's food I would eat over there is mine. Which is why I bring my food, which is why I was offering him food to eat. All right. I'm going to have a workout today in the form of mushroom logs. After I finish this log, I'm going to take you guys inside. I want to show you my harvest wall. I'm also doing a 12-day cleanse if you're interested. It is super inexpensive. There's a link in the description of this video to all my resources. I have a free ebook on tower gardening, but it's a 12-day course. Unfortunately, I have to do it through Facebook because it's a live cleanse. So there's a PDF, but the PDF is just basic general information. All of the cleanse, detoxing information, how to do it, all of that stuff will happen live in the Facebook group. And I'll film it all and probably launch it as like a individual course later that you can download if you don't want to be in the Facebook group. But, you know, the community and helping each other get through it is the key. And you don't have to do it 100%. Like, some people just want to learn how to replace one meal a day with a green smoothie with 2 to 3 cups of greens, which is your daily recommended amount that most people don't get. And that's an option too. But the smoothie cleanse will be where I am going all in. So I'm going to be cleansing by just doing smoothies. If I need a snack, it'll be raw fruits and vegetables, no dips, no oils and things like that. And then I am also going to incorporate a detox soup in the evenings, just because it's hard to do a smoothie cleanse in the winter, especially at night, like after the gym. It can be really cold. And so that will be an option. And you can do detox soups. The goal in any cleanse, but in a smoothie cleanse, is we're going for high fiber whole foods instead of like a juice cleanse, which is a cellular cleansing tool, and a digestion cleanse, because you're not digesting anything. With this, we'll still have digestion, but it's going to be feeding our gut microbiome, because we're giving it lots of fiber. Even if it's blended, we're giving it all of those things in a way that makes it super absorbable and feeds the healthy gut biome, like the prebiotic stuff, without having to do heavy lifting, without having to do a bunch of digestion. So it gives it a break while feeding the gut when we do a smoothie cleanse. And the soups will be the same, because we're going to blend them so that we are not chewing up a lot of ingredients. There will be mushrooms in mine, because I also work out at CrossFit, and I want to make sure I'm not losing any muscle during that time. Complete proteins. These have all the amino acids in place. We don't have to consume. Actually, proteins are one of the only things that are toxic to the body if you eat too many of them. And trust me, all these recommendations of your body weight, like I think mine, I'm recommended 120 a day. It's crazy. That's not right. I tried to do 80 once and was not well. Because we can eat complete proteins in a different source. Rice and beans are a complete protein, and they don't have the toxic effects as if you're overeating protein. Oh, the newsletter. Look, Elisa, In the description, there's a link to my storefront, and you'll see the newsletter there that you can sign up for. A document on what to plant when. I do a lot of videos on that. It's hard to have a document because it depends on how you're growing and where you're growing. It's more about, and what I like to teach on my channel, understanding plants. Also, with aeroponics and hydroponics, I can plant whatever I want whenever I want. So like right now I'm growing tomatoes and peppers in my garage and cucumbers. And I'm also growing cold weather crops because my garage is cool enough for both. The temperature I can have a mini split in our garage, so I can maintain the temperature to make sure I can do both. And so kind of changes like what I plant when and what's your growing zone. What I plant, and people do have this problem. Sometimes they'll be in Florida and I'm planting cucumbers and they'll try planting them at the same time. You cannot grow cucumbers at the same time in Florida as I can here. I'm in Western North Carolina in the mountains because cucumbers need certain temperatures. So I make a lot of videos on how to understand plants. And that's what we need to learn. We need to get away from like thinking there's a one right way. It's our environment and how the plants react and kind of understanding our zones. A good way that I learned is I joined some permaculture groups on Facebook for my area when I first got into growing food. And that really helped because permaculture people know their plants and they know things. And if you're in a group or a gardening group for your area, you can kind of see what people who've been doing it for a while are growing at what time. Now, when we get into hydroponics and aeroponics, it's a little different because I can extend my seasons. I can grow more. I can grow earlier. So my spring gardens are about a month ahead of time with the towers versus in the soil. Like I'll have squash 2 months ahead of time. So it's a little bit different. The world is changing faster than anyone thinks. It is for sure changing. The AI stuff, guys, like, I don't know. It's creepy what's coming out with AI. I mean, it is going to take over almost every industry. It's important to kind of be prepared for that. I was listening to Mike Adams, and it was, like taking over the movie industry and the music industry. Having a doctor, before you see a doctor, you'll see an AI doctor. A lot of that stuff's already happening. AI surgeries, they're already doing a lot of these things. I used to be in medical sales, and they had some things back then, especially for like neurology, neuro brain surgery and stuff. It's going to be incredible. And we need to be prepared for how it affects, like, what do we want to participate in? The food systems are changing. I think we're going to see a lot more positive change as far as some of the stuff that's out of control with the toxins. Like right now, our food system is based on big ag, lobbyists, big farm, chemical product by-waste. They put the chemical product by-waste in the fertilizers. So it's biosludge. That's what they feed the grass that feeds these grass-fed cows that you're getting. And those cows are not on pasture. They literally grow the grass with sludge, biosludge full of pharmaceuticals, human waste, disgusting. And then they feed that, they cut it and feed it to the cow that's in a cage. So grass-fed does not mean, and that's what you're getting at like Costco and those. That's why it's affordable. If you want pasture-raised, regenerative farmed, grass-fed beef, it's very, very, very expensive. And so I think we're going to see more of that as some of the food systems change. But what it does is it makes it more affordable, and there's no middle ground. And so we're either going to have really high quality food that you can purchase or lab grown foods to fill the gaps. And they've been telling us that forever. Like, you'll eat less meat and you'll like it. You'll own nothing and you'll like it, right? That's what they said back in the day when they rolled out the fourth industrial revolution. So I've always been a big fan of a hedge of protection. Did this with my kids when they used to homeschool. They're all pretty much grown now and on college paths, but like, I don't know how to word this on here because I don't know. It's careful information, but I made sure they weren't in any special labeled system. There were umbrella options for my children. And the reason I did that is because if anything changed with the laws, I wanted to have a buffer. I wanted time. I didn't want them registered in that particular sect of homeschooling to where we would immediately have to align with any changes. And so there's ways to create a hedge of protection. From the homeschooling sect, look into umbrella schools. You can register them through private schools and keep them off the radar with that, but still homeschool them. And it's just protection. Like, why do we grow our own food? For one, people were calling 911 day 3 of this hurricane, saying they were starving to death. Like 3 days, people were out of food. It's very scary. $1 million homes were having to have resources like helicopters, dropping them bottled water and food, processed food, off of helicopters. Like, that is crazy. We need to do better than that. And then the ones who were prepared, my friends who are homesteaders and grow their own food and have reserves, they were fine. Like, 3 months without power barely fazed them. They didn't really break a sweat over that. And think about that. If you lost power tomorrow and you couldn't get out on your roads, because some it was about, I think the main ones, well, I know someone that was a couple of months in and still hadn't gotten out. I mean, most of them were like 3 weeks before they could get at least on a side-by-side out of the mountains. Would you be okay for that long if you couldn't go anywhere? And if you had no power for 3 months, would you be okay? Like, those are the things I like to think about. Because the ones who weren't, they were literally having to be rescued by helicopter and be carried out of there. And some of them were in very, very bad shape because they weren't rescued for 3 weeks and they didn't have resources and they didn't have neighbors who had resources that could help them. Do you keep the log wet or covered outside? I'll take you guys and show you my logs. They just go out in nature. I keep them in a filtered light situation. You want a little bit of sun because they absorb UV light and turn it into vitamin D. Mushrooms are one of the only plant-based sources of vitamin D. So we want a little sun exposure, but I keep them in the shade. I'll show you in a second. Just out in nature. I never water them. Sometimes if they're pipping, which means they're showing signs that they're like little buds of mushrooms. It happened yesterday. I was looking at some. You can take them and get them really wet and encourage them to bloom even more. Or if you want to get your log to bloom and it hasn't bloomed and you're in like a drought, you can put them in a bin of water. That's why we cut them to a manageable size. Not all of them. I have some that are huge because those are my long-term food security. These smaller ones can be dumped in a bin of water and soaked, which will encourage them, as long as the temperatures are right, to spawn so I can make sure we have food as we need it. But for the most part, I just let them do their thing, and I grow enough that I have some at all different phases. So I have some that are almost completely broken down. They still fruit because there's still food. As long as there's a log, there's still food. And I have some brand new ones. I have small ones, I have large ones, and that helps to diversify. The best time of year to do this is in the winter. Cutting the trees, the best time is when they're about 30% of their leaves have fallen, because the sugars are going back into the roots, but they haven't made it all the way down at that point, so they're in the trunk. The next best time is before spring, when you first start to see the tree budding but hasn't quite produced leaves. That is the next best time because the sugars and the starches are coming up from the ground into the root, from the roots, and going up into the tree to feed the leaves. But if you just happen to have a tree that comes down or needs to be taken down at any time of the year, you can do it anytime. So we're just talking about ideal But I mean, mushrooms grow wild everywhere, anywhere. It's not like they wait for the exact tree to fall at the exact right time to produce. They just need food. And nature wants to do its thing. Food wants to grow, which is good for us. All right. I have 12 more logs after this that are already drilled out. Those need to be done today and tomorrow before this cold weather comes. So we have a lot of work ahead of us. But again, we get to be outside. I get to talk to you guys. I'm going to scroll and let's see. Happy New Year. It's my goal in 2025. First off, I changed the channel name, Alternative Homesteading. I'm going to be going on tours. We are taking a trip to Orlando, and I used to live in Florida, so I'm going to reach out to some permaculture people. I'm going to start showing you guys tours at least once a month. I'd like to do more of other people's homesteads or other people's way they live and garden and use food. Because I will tell you one thing we are rich in this culture is people who live alternative lifestyles. And so sometimes when people see shed homes, like, how in the world can someone live in a shed? That's kind of a normal thing around here. Lots of people bug out of the systems, sell everything they owned, which my husband and I did this, and they buy a camper or they buy a shed and they buy some land and they start over debt-free, living alternatively. And then they kind of expand. When they get the money, they get a second shed, and their kids may live in one shed and they live in one shed. It's a normal thing. People live in yurts here. That's totally common, to live in a yurt forever. Not a temporary house. It's just how they live. People live in all kinds of cob houses. Cob houses are super cool. I really want to build one. That's another alternative way. A lot of people I know here will come into the forest, live in a camper, cut the trees down and build their home from scratch. This house was actually built from scratch. I did not build this house. We did not. We bought it from the person who built it from scratch. But you can tell when you get inside. It's what's the word? It is handcrafted. And some of that, not in the best ways sometimes. Okay. We're going to seal these logs. And I love that about it. Cool thing about alternative living too is, like, modern homes are pretty rough to stay in a hurricane situation or a power out situation because of all the insulation. They don't breathe very well. Where, like, this house actually functions better without electricity and without a heating system. It's actually quite inefficient to heat without wood because it leaks, and it was designed to not be with power. I live in Port St. Lucie, Florida. I'm a gardener. However, I have 10 acres in South Carolina. Oh, South Carolina is beautiful. I follow Roots and Refuge. She's over there. I'm going to go to her homestead store and check it out one day. I haven't heard much about it lately, actually. We're up in Western North Carolina. We lived in Florida, and we sold everything we owned. Everything. And I kept, what did I keep? One box of photos. I kept some of my original artwork that I loved. I kept that big mirror you guys see in my house. I actually tried to get rid of it like 4 times. I never did, and I'm glad I didn't, because our house is really dark and it helps. And we moved into our camper and we traveled. And I wanted to live here. I went to a primitive camping trip here while we were on the road. Told my husband this is where we're supposed to live. And then in the summer of 2019, the Lord just put heavily on my heart that something was coming and we needed to buy a house. And we did. We bought this one thinking we would Airbnb it, and we kept traveling. And then we know what happened in 2020, which changed everything. But that calling was, I'm so glad I listened to it, because we wouldn't have been able to afford to buy a house, because everything doubled at 2020. I mean, think about that. This house doubled that handmade little log cabin. It was 750 square feet. We added square footage to the basement, so it's 1,150 square feet now. It doubled in 2 months, which is crazy. So anyone who says inflation isn't real has not paid attention to food and housing and all of that. I also stock food. I'm going to give a pantry tour on my channel and kind of explain how I do it, because I believe in living in preparedness, not just stocking things that go to waste. And I have lentils I was eating from 2016, and I did a price comparison on them, and they're 4 times more expensive right now for that pack of lentils than what I paid for in 2016. And I preserve them in a way. They're totally fine. I actually have like a whole nother bin of them. So that's a return on investment right there, because you cannot get that kind of return in the scam stock market or even in the Bitcoin world. All right, we're waxing. Thanks for hanging out with me. It makes it way more enjoyable. I'm going to read some comments. Oh, what am I doing here? So I am spawning mushroom logs. So we drill the holes in them, and I did this. It's a course coming out on my channel, or not a course, a how-to video where I explain everything, what kind of logs, why we do it, how we do it. That's coming out next week. But we took down the trees, specific ones, drilled holes in them, and now I'm putting the mushroom spawn in, and I'm covering it with wax to seal it so that we don't lose any of our beautiful mushroom spawn. And it allows for like non-wild species to get in here. So it gives our log time, or our spawn time, to take over this. So what the mushroom spawn is doing is it eats the tree. It's a decomposer. Mushrooms are decomposers. And the food is the tree. This is, I forget which type of tree this is. White oak, probably. I think this is a white oak. It's a hardwood, and it's going to eat these trees. If we do something softer, it still eats the trees, but it goes through them really fast. Where if we do a hardwood, it gives us time so that we have these for a while. Let me show you what some of them look like. So this is where I keep a couple of them right by my front door so I don't miss them. And you can see that it washes out eventually, but that's okay because it's already grown in to this log. This one's blooming at all. This one fruited a while ago. Oh, gave us lots of food, and it'll continue to fruit. This one did as well, but every time they fruit, you can see it's eating the tree. So my log is breaking down. This part's super hard. This part's soft. And there's our mycelium in there doing its thing. And this one as well. These are kind of in a spot that doesn't get enough water. I have more. I don't know if the Wi-Fi will let me go that far. This is ones we did already. This pile. Those have holes in them. I have to do all of those today and tomorrow. These are my massive ones. I'm doing something different with these. I'm not going to be able to go over there, I don't think. Tell me if the Wi-Fi goes out. Thank you, Lena. Steph, wish I was there helping. Me too. Making me tired just watching. Admire your way and beautiful scenery as always. Oh, thank you. Okay, over here, these are some of my older mushroom logs. And I have a couple of new ones. This is where we're doing more because we're running low. This is an oyster mushroom. This one's not going to bloom until it's warm because oyster is warm. These are lion's mane. But we have some shiitake here. This is shiitake. And these, I was giving them a couple more days to see if they'd get bigger. And there's one back here. And we had a bunch of rain yesterday. So these are what's called pipping. Let me see if I can find one. I pulled the one. All right. That's a whole thing that can wipe out. All right. That's a whole thing that can wipe out. I don't know. Post in the comments. Do you think we're going to have a grid down situation? I think if we do, it'll be very temporary, but long enough that most people will be in a bad situation. So I don't think it'll be like 1 second after where it's 5 years, that book. I think it'll be maybe 3 months, which to a lot of people, that's a real big problem. Most people are not prepared for a 3-month. I learned that through this hurricane. I was shocked at how many people, first off, had no clue what was going on. Hold that thought. Because they didn't have a way to communicate. Like they didn't have radios or anything. So when the cells and the Wi-Fi went down, they really had no clue what had happened. And so that was shocking to me because we had ham radios and we had another radio. I can't think of the shortwave radio. So we knew what was going on really quickly. And then people just did not have food. They did not have water. They did not have backup power for medical devices. Big deal stuff. For a while, it was really scary. For like a couple of weeks, you would hear ambulances all over the mountains. And it was because people weren't plugged into their medical devices and they were going through medical crisis. Even after we got power back on, there was just like, I counted like 6 in one day. That's weird up in the mountains. You rarely ever hear ambulance or anything up here. And it's just because people got out of their systems and they weren't plugged into whatever they needed to be plugged in. And it caused a lot of problems and a lot of emergencies. There were also not emergency people out for the first few days because they were in the rescue. So people were calling 911 for rescue and for emergencies, and they weren't able to get help because there was nobody to help. Like, keep that in mind. There's only so many first responders out there. They were all gone. They were busy helping wherever they were called first. And the rest of the people, no one ever came. It's hard with so many problems. Oh, thank you, Sharon. I'm glad you caught the live. I am doing some mushrooming, kind of alone. The family, one of my sons has a job. He's in the HVAC industry, working full time. He'll be 19 in February. And the rest of the family went to go to the coffee shop to do work. So I am taking this opportunity in this good weather to get these mushroom logs done because bad weather is coming. You guys need to prepare. It's going to be super cold in areas. I know we're going to be at like 14 and ice. And so making sure we've got our firewood secure, our stuff for power outs. I'm going to do a full log cabin tour soon and share in there how I keep our home prepared without power all the time, because it's not just in a case of emergency. In the case of emergency, you want to have everything easily accessible, but I also have I keep sconces all over our house for candles. That's how we light things. And so if the power goes at night, it's really just simply grabbing the lighters that I keep next to all the sconces and getting everything lit up so we can see. And that's what we did with the hurricane. We lost power multiple times. And then we could decide, do we need to get prepared for this to be a long-term thing with oil lamps, stuff like that. Oil lamps are a great prepper tool. I will tell you the least effective thing we used during this hurricane had battery-operated lighting. Lanterns, useless. Because even if you store batteries, they go bad. So that the ones I had stored, we were running through them so fast. It was so wasteful. I hated it. I won't do anything battery operated. The things that were the most useful were my candle sconces that are on my walls, because those are immediate, and I just stockpile candles. Oil lamps, it's easy and actually easier to stockpile lamp oil and supplies. I just stockpile the lamp oil, extra glass things because those can break, and the wicks. I just keep that in bulk. It's easy in our garage. Those burn beautifully. It's a gentle light. It's easy, and they burn for a long, long time. So those, and then I also keep solar lights, like garden lights. I get them at Sam's, and those are great because you put them outside during the day. And then at night, I could just put them all over the house where we needed them, especially like if I was trying to, our house is really dark because of the way it sits, because it was designed to not have AC. It's just dark. So I was able to put those in the kitchen at different places and like hang them so I could see. And they weren't wasteful because you just took them back outside and had them charged during the day for solar. So those are my 3, if you want to prepare lights. Don't do battery operated stuff. The batteries corrode in them. They were all useless. Won't rely on any of that lantern stuff moving forward. Stuff just ends up in the landfill too. You can stick a candle down in a melted can of Crisco. Let it harden. Oh, sweet. I did not know that. That's a good tip. Someone mentioned you could take your oven rack out and use your oven rack to grill on over the fire. I thought that was really, I have a grill rack that goes over fire that we take camping. But I thought that was really handy because I intentionally bought this one for emergencies. We just use it with camping. But I thought, you know, if you didn't have one, that's great. Gas is the other thing. Our stove was gas, both the oven and the stove. I got that in right before the hurricane. Best decision ever because our lives felt very easy during this emergency. We had water, we had lighting, we had food, we had a way to cook it, and we had ways to help people with medical devices in our area charge their stuff. So backup battery pack type systems. And we had communication. We had radios, so we knew what was going on. And we had walkie-talkie systems. So if we needed to go into town, the disaster zone, as a family, which we did quite often, we could communicate because there were no cell phones. So it was nice to know, like, if I went left and my children went right, my husband was in another area, I could communicate with them if something else happened, or just communication in general. I need a chair. Hold on. Log chair. Oh yeah. That is so much better. You can also do the same thing with terracotta pots with lard and a wick put in it. One pot upside down and the other for heat in a greenhouse. Awesome. Yeah, I love all the tips and tricks. These are things that were normal for generations prior. Now it's like, oh, prepping is a hobby. People think you're crazy if you prepare. It's like how people lived. People back then, if we went back 100 years and told them that we rely on a grocery store and that there'd be complete anarchy in 12 days of a crisis, because without grocery stores, like, people can make it about 3 days before everything falls apart. Like, they would think that's crazy. They would think we are a very bizarre generation to have handed over all our independence and power, which is what we did, all for the name of convenience. And then they change the food systems and they add all the toxins without our consent. CRISPR technology, MR in the lettuce, that's a thing. I'm sure it's already out. They're saying they can do it now. By the time they tell you they can do something, they're already doing it. You had Tennessee had a council meeting where they were trying to make sure that stuff was labeled. If it wasn't already out, why do they need to have meetings to make sure it's labeled? They were trying to get it labeled as a pharma product. I don't know if that ever passed. But the fact you've got people like making that a law tells you it's here. They inject all kinds of things. Those grocery stores that mist, they're misting like a chlorine product. I was at the grocery store the other day looking at some organic roots because they don't have a lot of root vegetables right now. And they were misting that stuff. And I was like, well, never mind. So organic produce gets misted with these chemicals. Nobody told you that water dripping out of there was chemicals. They didn't tell me. I don't see any sign warning us on what that is. If you just hopped on, I'm inoculating logs. My prepping started after I attended a disaster emergency service briefing, excuse me, that was held for the case of the new Madrid earthquake. Yeah. I followed some of that new Madrid line stuff. That'll be catastrophic. And the California one, if that ever blows. Or Yellowstone. There's a bunch of stuff going on in Yellowstone over the last couple of years. I will tell you, like, when this emergency happened, we had a lot of rescue from you guys, like people, not from the government, from people. Sent supplies and they came and helped. But imagine if there was a crisis, let's say in New York, Florida, and North Carolina at the same time, or Virginia. Just 3 at the same time, there would have been no help because there wouldn't be enough help for that many areas. So it made me realize like how truly vulnerable we were able to be okay pretty quickly because there were other people. It was isolated, even though it was huge, it was isolated and there were other people that could help. No government came to help, not for many, many days. They showed up day 11 and they were just mucking. They didn't show up with food. They showed up to hand out food that came from you guys, that came from other people. They didn't bring food to give out. They didn't bring supplies. They helped muck. They went to distribution centers and helped hand things out. They helped monitor like looting. Nothing much. They were gone in 3 weeks. So, eye-opening experience. Because it made me realize like the people that helped were other states. A lot through the churches, getting the supplies in. But if there was a crisis in 2 other areas at the same time, that would not have been there. It would have been neighbors helping neighbors is what you would be reduced to. So the more neighbors we get prepared, the better. I'm waxing. And they're still not helping here, by the way. They're still not cleaning up and stuff. I had a bunch of small propane bottles stored for 10 plus years that had leaked and were empty when I needed one the other day, just in case. Yeah, propane. A lot of those things, gas goes bad. We had a generator and we had gas, but the gas was left in it and it went bad, so it took 2 days, or maybe a full day, I don't remember now, to get that back up and running. But then there were no gas stations. You couldn't go get gas. So unless you're stockpiling gas, like all of those things are short-term emergencies. But really, we needed to be prepared for no power and no outside resources, because that's what happened here. People didn't have a way to get to places. And if you could get to places, they only took cash and nobody had cash. That was surprising to me too. I went to the grocery store just to kind of see what was going on. The line was, it was a 4-hour wait. And people were getting like $10 worth of stuff because that's all they could scrounge in cash. So very scary. Also the 4-hour wait, like who wants to wait? You never want to be in a situation you got to sit and be at the mercy of something like that in an emergency, because it's dangerous. That particular emergency was hurting, but what if it was like oh my gosh, my logs fell. I always think to like, what if 2020 was real, like a real contagion event? People are like hanging out at the Walmart. Come on, it's crazy. Use seafoam for your gas. I don't know what seafoam is. Oh, seafoam for your gas storage. Yeah, my husband did something now. He kind of preps on that like generator side. I like to prep on the, which is great because that makes life easy for a short-term emergency. I like to prep on the no grid down, no resources side. Personally, I just feel like that's easier than trying to figure out how to store gas and all that stuff. But having stored gas, like now we have a system and we rotate through it. I think we keep like 4 gallons, but we trade it out often just to be a little bit more prepared. It was very eye-opening. 2020 never happened. True. The calendar is off. You know, drinking water with high alkalinity is made very quickly with food-grade baking soda. Oh, natural and neat. What wax do you use to seal the spores? I use beeswax, so just natural beeswax. Bees are something I raised in the past, and I will be getting back into this spring as a food source. So my food sources are mushrooms, and I'm plant-based. Mushrooms, all the greens, and I eat a lot of root vegetables that I grow on my towers and in my hydroponic system. It's like a starchy, because it's a high-calorie starchy vegetable. And we do have chickens. I use them for compost. I don't personally like eggs, but I do make things for the family. I use permaculture techniques, so I grow a ton of fruit trees and berry trees for fruits, wild forage. Trying to think what else. I don't have a lot of nuts growing. We have black walnut, which I don't like. I do want to do some hazelnuts grow well here, so that's on the list moving forward. Herbs, do a ton of herbs. Debating on sheep for their wool, because I do wear wool and knit, and then possibly milking them. I don't know yet. I go back and forth. It's expensive to keep animals. So I have a neighbor we get our milk from, and that's the kind that doesn't go through all the processing, if you know what I mean. And that's for my children. Oh, the chemtrails. Don't even get me started. Like, I don't know how people could not believe in them. First off, there's all the patents. I mean, just look up geoengineering. They say they're doing it. And you can see them. Like, it's so obvious. I see contrails. They're very different than a chemtrail. So that one to me amazes me. Funny story about hazelnuts. My ex cut mine down and they grew back super thick. Oh, nice. Yeah, I've heard you can't kill hazelnuts except for the ones in America. There was some kind of disease. So the original ones aren't here anymore. We have a foreign hazelnut. I don't remember the whole story on that. Oh my gosh, how are we gonna get all these done? My arm's getting tired. I'm gonna take you guys in to see my harvest wall, and then I'm gonna go eat some dal and take a break after this one. And I want to show you my towers. Show you what it looks like to have food growing full time. And so I made dal 2 nights ago, which is just lentils. So I stockpile the lentils. I am going to try and grow them on the towers this year and try to get into more of my own dried beans. But I did the lentils, which I stock up on, and we're eating the ones from 2016 that costed a fourth of what they cost now. And I put in radish from my harvest well, and I put in the radish greens and a bunch of other greens, and I harvested some peppers off my towers and some tomatoes I had stored in the freezer from my gardens. And we made a beautiful meal that was with homegrown ingredients. So instead of just lentils, we made them a superfood. A lot of the spices I grew, fennel seed was one of them. So these are not hard tasks to do, like mushrooms, but you can see it is time consuming. But this log will produce, it's not going to fruit for a couple of years. Well, this one, this size, probably fruit in a year, and it'll produce fruit for a couple of years, and then it'll be done. It'll just fall apart and turn into compost. Bigger logs will take longer to start fruiting, but can fruit for up to like 8 years, depending on the size of the log. Most of mine make it about, let's see, I did my first ones 5 years ago. I think it's been 5 years, maybe 4 years ago. Most of those are pretty much done. I still get a few on the bigger logs. So it's worth the effort, all that to say. It's not like I have to do this every week to get food, which is why I'm doing alternative homesteading, which is the new name of the channel. Because most people, to get food, have to do a lot of work every single day to get a protein source. Rotational grazing, buying minerals and food and medicines for animals, and do all the things, and then they put it in their freezer and it gives them food for a while. But you got to keep doing that daily work. I don't want to do the daily work all the time. There is work, obviously, but my gardens don't take up daily time at all. I gardened yesterday and did my harvest wall. I don't know, it was like 30 minutes. I planted 25 plants, and now I do nothing. I fill it up once. My harvest wall is going through water like every 3 weeks right now with pretty mature plants. My towers, it depends. New ones, I'll show you. They'll go 3 months with these tiny plants in them. Hydroponics and aeroponics use 90% less water, which is very important in an emergency. Here's another thing. I always hear like people think hydroponics and aeroponics is not a great way to grow for an emergency because they require power. But the amount of power they use is easy to maintain with backup system. I have a little backup solar system. It uses very little power, uses 90% less water, which in an emergency situation, the hardest thing you're going to have access to is water. It's the hardest thing to find. So there's that. And then most people don't realize, like if they're growing in the soil, you have to water your gardens if you want to get the most out of them. You can do gardens and just like, if you have a lot of land, which is why a lot of people who don't water their gardens grow in like 5,000 square foot spaces, because they're not getting as much food because they aren't watering them. But you have to water your gardens, and that requires power. You can't water a garden without power. Really keep alive. For the first 4 days, I watered them. It's going to let me modify. You need certain temperatures for tomatoes to bloom. So while they're growing, right now, I'm keeping my garage at like 65. When it's time for them to fruit, you need to be like at 70, which this garage will get that warm because of the sun. It's south facing, so like right now it's open to get access to sun. If it's 65 or below all the time, you may have a hard time getting them to fruit. Okay. Oh, sorry about the signal cutting in and out. I don't know if it's still cutting in and out. Okay, I got on a different Wi-Fi. Yay! All right, so I'll talk about storing. So this is my towers. Baby greens, chives, lettuce, cilantro, basil, turnipy things, kohlrabi, green beans, more greens, a lot of greens this time of year. That is not wet. Why is that not wet? Oh, I unplugged my tower. Hold on. I forgot I was cleaning the garage and I took the extension cord. So back here, this is long-term food storage. So I store things from critters in here. So these are buckets. They have oxygen absorbers in them, and the food's in there. Some of it is also in Mylar bags. And then I rotate this stuff out every 5 years. So that's why I'm eating some stuff right now from 2016. And that one's not food. Because when I'm just rotating things out, they look like that. So nothing can get in there. And it's sealed up. Woo, that was loud. You can get like weevily things and grains. They recommend you put grains in the freezer for 3 days and then store them to kill any eggs. But they can only produce if there's oxygen. And so I just make sure I put the right oxygen absorber in there because there's different strengths, I guess. Strengths, I don't know what you would call it. And then I also put bay leaves. They don't like critters don't like bay leaves. And I've never had anything. I've had things in my pantry. I had one thing go bad. I keep a year's supply in our inside pantry in our basement. And I had one thing go bad. Got moisture in it and oxygen, and it was a pancake mix from Azure Standard. That's not something you want to store for long periods of time anyway. Sorry, I'm trying to plug this in. The lights are going crazy. And I just left it. I forgot about it and left it way too long. It wasn't something we used very often. And I had a gamma lid, like a screw-on lid. So it had been opened and closed a bunch. And so it just had access to oxygen. And the things needed to have pests grow in there. So I keep a 3 to 5 year supply here. And then my 1 year supply is in the house. And then I rotate every 5 years. I start pulling out of here and I just restock this. And I stock everything from Azure Standard because that's what we eat. And I only stock what we eat. Some things can't go that long. Flax seeds, brown rice, maximum is 5 years. Things that have a natural fat on them don't store as long. Fats don't store as long. Let me show you guys my peppers. So I harvested these. So this is my pepper tower. And I grow hot peppers because I'm a big hot pepper fan. And I grow bell peppers. And I grow them year round. Peppers will live for 5 years. So look at how beautiful. Now the leaves look terrible. These were outside and then moved inside. But once this is done, I just cut it back and prune it. And it regrows. This is marjoram. It's a medicinal herb. So this is a bell pepper that I harvested from, and then I cut it back, and now it's beautiful and refruiting. Cayenne peppers, or chili peppers. I grow corbaci, which are sweet peppers. So some of these are sweet peppers, even though they look like hot peppers. I grow a ton of jalapeno peppers because I'm obsessed. Greens. It's another green tower. These are your superfoods. These are the things that are going to reverse illness and help to keep you healthy. Arugula for neurological support. Cilantro, heavy metal detox. So many beautiful things. Spinach. And then the harvest wall. Do you cut your pepper roots? I have never cut the pepper roots. I haven't done that yet. And those are going on they're over 1.5 years. I don't remember exactly when. Also, my aloe plants up top. Those are medicinal. That's a medicinal edible aloe. I might cut the roots at some point. So far, I haven't had to. How many hours a day do your lights stay on? 16 to 18. How do I get the towers? Cynthia, look in the description of this video, and there's a link to my storefront. The towers are amazing. This harvest wall, you go to their website, which is harvesthome.com. I forget the website. It's in my storefront too. And then use coupon code ATC5 and you get 5% off. This is a hydroponic system. It's a hybrid system. I mean, look, you can grow green beans year round. They do so amazing. These are my tomato plants, thriving. They're starting to produce flowers. And to get them to, this is a dwarf tomato. This is tatsoi, chijimusai, some sort of cabbage, bok choy. These are superfoods. Kale is great, but if you can get bok choys, that's key. This is cauliflower. It's a baby cauliflower, so it'll produce cauliflower about that big. That's cauliflower, my amazing kale, green onions, lettuce. This stays inside full time. So these are my chemtrail-free plants. The towers grow outside year-round, or 3 seasons of the year, and are inside 1. And the thing with the towers, they grow amazing outside. They just grow so much more food. I can grow like pumpkins, all my tomatoes, anything on there, as long as you have a trellis system. This system's more smaller, medium, maxed out greens, but this one actually produces fruit a little bit better. So the green beans are a little bit more. I'm running a test. That's why I have green beans on the tower. I have noticed I get more green beans off of this so far over the towers. I can also grow radish on here, which don't grow really well on the towers. Root vegetables, turnips grow amazing on the towers. They just grow smaller. So beets, anything where the root grows above the soil and the feeder roots grow below, you can grow in hydroponics. So these are my radish. Radish were $3.95 for a small bundle of organic radish at the grocery store, which would probably be the equivalent of 2 of these because these are so big, same weight-wise. That's crazy. $4 for a handful of radish. Radish is a superfood. I also start my seedlings in here. I also start them not in here too, so I have constant turnover, and they just do amazing. Look at this. I don't even know what this is. It's adorable. Little buttercrunch head. Oh, that is the little Tom lettuce. This is wasabi. So cool. So that's the hydroponic system. Do you use natural light? I use a greenhouse with blue windows. Everything grows incredibly fast. I didn't think about blue windows. That's awesome. These are full spectrum lights. This one has a blue in it, or a different color in it that the towers don't have. I think that's why the green beans fruit a little bit better here. I've noticed a little bit better fruiting on this one. The tomatoes definitely seem happier on this than in my tower indoors. Another reason though, it's not because of the light. It's actually because this system's off the ground. So the water is in here. And when I turn it on, it's doing exactly what the towers do. It's pumping it to the top and it runs in this channel and then it drips down. Exact same thing the towers do. The only difference is this is in cocoa core and worm casings, where the towers are just aeroponics, so they're in rock wool. But the difference, and I think why the tomatoes are happier in there, is this sits on my cold concrete floors. And so when it's cold in here, even if I run the temperature, the concrete is so cold that it makes the water ice cold. So I used to put heaters in these, and I'll probably put heaters in them this week. And that's an option just to get some warmth on them. Because that one's off the ground, it's not getting as cold. The water doesn't feel as cold to the touch. Moving forward, I'm thinking about always having 2 pepper towers in the garage because I grow in them in the garage year round. My harvest wall, I'm expanding that system, but I may just do the towers under a, what do you call it? High wall, high tunnel. out here. And so I could keep them alive. I could keep everything on my towers except for the green beans going in our climate all winter in a high tunnel with no problem, especially if I put some like black drums of water in there that would heat up during the day and then put off heat at night. So that's the plan. And I may insulate the base of them or put them on some insulation. I'm also just kind of tired of, like, these are all my towers that are done, having to clean them, put them in the garage, back and forth. I'm kind of tired of that. I just have the harvest wall now, so it fills the gaps. Are they heavy to sit on top of wood pallets? No, you could do them on wood pallets. I just haven't. We have wood pallets. It's just a management issue. Sometimes I take them out when it's warm and put them back in, and sometimes I wash them off because I do get aphids in the garage because we leave the doors open and there's not a lot of predators. I'm actually releasing lacewings in there this week to deal with aphids. So it's just been hard to manage, where if they're in a high tunnel on warm days, I could go in and hose them off and keep everything clean and tidy and then be done with it and not worry about it. So I'm leaning towards the high tunnels moving forward. The harvest wall doesn't have aphid problems. It's been in there for the whole time. I don't have any problems whatsoever. I don't know why. I think it's because the towers go in and out, and for whatever reason, I don't really know. I don't know why they're not messing with one, but they are with the others. A house and a greenhouse. Yeah, I've seen those houses built in greenhouses, or where they put the greenhouse on the front. That's so cool. All that for personal consumption, yes, and it's not enough. I usually have 13 towers going plus my harvest wall, but I'm growing all my own food. I stockpile some things like beans and grains that I can't grow, but I grow, like, I'll be canning all my tomatoes and salsa this year, pumpkins, winter squash. We're eating winter squash right now in soups that I grew on my towers. So some of it is to store, and then some of it's to fill the gaps. And that's, if you eat like 2 giant salads a day, I also juice. You'd be surprised how little you need to buy from the grocery store. Add the mushrooms in there. So good. Hi from France. Wooden cork. Yeah, you can also on your towers, and I tell people all the time, like, just get that foam board, that foam insulation, and you can put your towers on that, and you can wrap your towers in insulation. I just haven't done it. Like I said, I kind of have to bring them in and out, and it's been a pain. And I think moving forward, I'm actually going to make them taller. They're going to be like this one. That one is way taller than the regulars. So I can increase how much I grow in them. And if they were in a high tunnel right now, on the weather we have, it would be totally fine. And I could just grow cool weather crops and root crops and so many things. Turnips. I grow beets, grow in them really well. Kohlrabi grows amazing. Cauliflower, all of that would live in there in a high tunnel and produce wonderfully in our climate. So that really needs to be the next investment, because I would have a lot more food right now if I was in the high tunnel. And then the harvest wall can do the green beans and the tomatoes, and the peppers can stay in the towers in the garage, and I can kind of fill the gaps that way. I like the variety. If you're going to grow your own food, I think that's where traditional homesteading and alternative homesteading, which is what I'm changing the channel's name to, the difference. Traditional homesteading, you're growing in season and canning and preserving, where the way I like to do it is have the access to the fresh food. So if I can make an incredible meal like my dal I made by having access to peppers and root vegetables and greens, and then my lentils, some tomatoes, I mean, that makes an incredible meal that's really diverse, nutrient-wise and taste-wise, and it's all fresh. The other thing, soils, and Roots and Refuge was talking about this just this week. Like, all her seedlings wouldn't start. The quality of compost is terrible if you're buying it at a store. There were a lot of problems in 2020 because of so many people wanting access to grow. It really, the market couldn't keep up, so they were selling hot compost, which means it wasn't fully broken down, and it burned up plants. And you have to have the right stuff to start seedlings in and to grow food in. And then you've also got the issue of, what are the animals eating? So had a bunch of compost delivered here from the best resource in town that I knew of that I could afford. There's some that are really amazing, but at $25 a bag, there's just no way. And it was filled with plastics because whoever was donating animal manure was donating it in plastic feed bags, and they were just chopping up the plastic feed bags with the compost. I mean, how sick is that? So whatever the animal's eating, you're going to be exposed to. Whatever they're like, at Roots and Refuge, one of her gardens was completely toxic and had to be remediated, I think is the word. Yeah. Because it had forever chemicals in it. And it came from, if it was organic soil, this happened a bunch in 2021. The organic soil, when they were spraying, it was blowing over to where the cows were. So these grass-fed cows were getting exposed to all these heavy chemicals and forever chemicals that were being sprayed in the field that they were then eating. And then the compost was made. And so not only did the people who think they were getting these healthy organic cows, they were eating this terrible stuff. And then the soil that came from those animals was toxic, like totally killed her whole garden. She couldn't grow anything in that. That happened quite a bit to quite a few people. So the compost is concerning. Soil depletion, even organic with mono farming, the soil's depleted. So there's all sorts of studies about how the nutrients are lacking in food because of that. Aluminum is super high in the soil. I think that's going to be the reason. That's going to drive with famine, in my opinion. We're going to wake up one day and with all these modifications, nature's going to fight back, and there's tons of aluminum in the soil because of the stuff falling from the sky. All of that makes your food at the grocery store, plus it's old, not full of nutrients. So when we grow with hydroponics, because I'm giving them exactly what they need, just minerals, it has everything intact. And then when we eat it, we're eating it within minutes, a couple hours at the most. Sorry, I'm inhaling mushroom spawn. And we can just eat less. I don't know if you've ever eaten healthy. When you eat something junk foody, you crave food and crave food and crave food. When I go in and eat that dal, I will be filled for hours. It has very little calories. It's just so full of nutrients that I just don't crave anything after that. It satisfies you. I don't think people know what it means to be satisfied when it comes to hunger, because the food is designed to do the opposite. It's designed to make you want more and more and more by the tobacco industry and by scientists from Nazi Germany who came. We took all their scientists after the war, turned them into the people who make our food and grow our food and make our medicines. Pretty concerning. All right, we're going to seal this one up, and then I am going into the house to have some dal and take a little break. We got how many logs? 1, 2, 3. I got about 10 logs done. Got 12 more to go. So I'll come back out here and try and do 5 more tonight. Give myself a little quota. Do the rest tomorrow. But I'm putting the wax on now, and we just plop it on. I like to do a heavy amount because it does fall out, the spawn. If you don't put enough, it can leak out. Yeah, enjoy your New Year's Eve. I don't know what everybody's doing. We're going to have my teenagers invited friends over, so I just invited the parents. Why not? The kids are going to have a party. Why can't we? And we're going to eat homegrown food. I am doing a smoothie cleanse challenge if you want to participate. I'll start, sorry, I'm got spawn up in my mouth. I'll start sharing. The link is in the description. Super affordable. It's just a coming together. There's an ebook, but really the course will run as a live course. So I'll be teaching every day in there from January 1st on. How do you detox? How do you deal with detox symptoms? How to make your smoothies? Things like that. I've inhaled talking while you're doing this. I filmed myself making fire cider once. Live. Whoo. That one, when you're talking and breathing in a bunch of hot pepper fumes, that one got me. So join that and we'll do a cleanse together. Even if you just want to do one smoothie a day and not replace all your meals, that is an option as well. Just learning to replace one meal a day. And I'm doing this with my daughter right now. Just one meal a day gets all your greens in. So I can get her 3 handfuls of greens in just by helping her to learn how to replace that one meal a day with a smoothie. It's actually how my husband's health journey started and completely changed his health. He started with one smoothie a day. Through that, felt amazing. And then he realized, like, when he was eating out lunch, he felt terrible. And so he started replacing that with a healthy meal. And now he's 55 pounds less and super healthy. And it makes a difference. It's amazing what greens can do for the body. And we do not eat enough of them. I also don't always like salads. I don't know about you guys. I eat my greens a lot of different ways, but I like just having that smoothie to knock them out. So I know I've got that covered every day. And I don't feel like I have to eat a salad. Instead, I can eat dal loaded with greens. But we want raw greens in our diet. All right. Oh, wait. A couple more. Okay, this one's sealed up. Have a beautiful day, guys. I will see you soon. I have a video launching this week. Just kind of talking points. And then you can look for a full how-to mushroom video in the next few days. We filmed that a few weeks back with Billy from Pasture Farms. All right, have a beautiful night. I'll see you guys soon. Happy New Year.